And then again with the Epstein story here, massive Jeffrey Epstein cover-up draws backlash against the Trump administration. This was the big story really this week. Epstein, who was found dead by hanging from bed sheets in his New York City prison cell in 2019 while awaiting trial. Recent memo from the DOJ and FBI concluded that there is no evidence of a client list associated with Epstein and confirmed that he died by suicide in 2019. It contradicts previous statements made by officials, yes, and everyone else in the entire world. Contradicts literally everything because it's simply not true, right? The betrayal behind the Trump administration's denial of the Epstein list, systemic blackmail, and murder/suicide is causing significant backlash from many conservative supporters. Journalist Sagar Enjeti said that the most important thing is the record of the exchange of money as Epstein came to power largely because he was a money laundering expert. Enjeti made the point that the cover-up lie is not to convince Americans, but it is instead being used to signal to everybody involved in the scheme that the U.S. government will go to extreme lengths to protect them. I think there's a lot of truth to that, don't you guys? U.S. government will go to extreme lengths to protect them. And we're going to look at closer who some of them are. And of course, we know some of them, but there will be at least one person that will be mentioned specifically by name by Virginia Giuffre, or Giuffre, however you say her last name, no disrespect intended. She goes on a little bit of a talk here we're going to listen to in a bit. I guess you could call it the dead man switch. It's really the best way to put it. And I think she calls it that. And she names names in that particular recording. And I think you'll be surprised, although you may not be too surprised, on who one of the former U.S. presidents are that she continues to mention. And it's not Trump, I'll say that much, and we already know Clinton's on the list. It's someone else. I was a little surprised to hear it in a way. So anyway, stay tuned for that. We're going to look at that a little closer, but this is this has been the story this week. Yeah, this is the Trump mega massive crisis of the week. I think that this whole thing is really coming off the rails very quickly, and it's Epstein and his involvement with him over the years. They clearly were friends. It was certainly a lot more than simply riding on the plane one time that he claims that Trump's airplane was in the shop and that Epstein gave him a ride to Florida one time. That's pretty much all he admits to, and yet we saw all of the video footage in the Greg Reese report at the beginning of the show. Clearly that's not true. Clearly Trump is hiding something. And I'll go a step further here. I think that now, after seeing some further evidence just today and researching all this, I think that Elon Musk was right when he said, and then he later deleted the post on X, that Trump wants to hide this because his name is in the list. His name is part of the list. I think he's exactly right. And we'll go into why I think that now and didn't before. And we've got further details. We've got names and we've got places and confirmations that we're going to bring to you guys in just a bit. So stay tuned. Again, Trump, in my opinion, is definitely a lot deeper in this Epstein thing than he would have any of us believe. Trump and Bondi punt on Epstein questions. Oh, they shut it down, didn't they? Trump and Bondi completely punted over a question over Epstein during Tuesday's televised cabinet meeting, which we saw the clip in that Reese report at the beginning of the show. So we know what happened. And then there it is embedded there as well. So yeah, and of course now people are calling for Bondi to step down and all this stuff, which who knows? I don't really see that happening. I feel like she's, whatever you might think of her, I feel like she's doing what he wants. So if she's doing what he wants, then she's probably staying, is my opinion. And then let's see, this one also on X. 2 hours after Epstein's body was found on August 10th, 2019, which, by the way, was during the first Trump administration. Take that for what it's worth. This message was posted to 8chan from inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center. So did you guys know about this? Soon after this post went public, the 8chan site was taken down permanently by Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a well-known web host. So the site was taken down after this post. Here's what the post said. And here is a screenshot of the original post right here. Not saying, now this is a direct quote here from the post. Not saying anything after this. Please do not try to dox me, but last night after the 4:15 a.m. count, they took him to medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, but not one triage nurse says that they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up, ? We do not do releases on the weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself? ? Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in, and we did not record the plate number, and a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I am shaking right now, but I think they switched him out. Meaning, Jeffrey Epstein. So that was the post. That post happened 2 hours after Jeffrey Epstein's body was found. That message was posted on 8chan, and then the website was taken down permanently by Cloudflare. So he's saying here there was a military person in the trip van and did not record the plate number, and the tower guy let them through the gate and remembers the person in a green military outfit, and they think that they switched him out, meaning Jeffrey Epstein, for someone else that looked just like him. I'm tending to think that that is probably exactly what happened. Looks more like Fauci than Epstein. Anyway, yeah, so the question is, did he really die? And a lot of people think not. And when I played the Virginia Giuffre, I guess you could say it was a Dead Man Switch. When we play that in a little bit here, I think that's coming up here. She mentions it. But before we do that, let me look at this one. This is a pretty interesting Substack. I think in order to give you guys some perspective, we probably need to read this whole thing, or at least most of it. So kick back and just wait for me to read this for you. I think this will give you some perspective. Now, this is Chris Hedges' report. I don't know who Chris Hedges is, but I don't think he's just making this up. He's got a lot of really interesting details here through the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. And get a load of this picture. Yikes. Trump, Epstein, and the deep state. So this is where, I've kind of been someone who believed that, Trump may have been involved. He certainly did know Epstein. He may have been involved in the whole thing, but there was no real evidence to say that he did. And if there was, they probably would have, they already hate this guy. They already would have used that evidence against him. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. And let's read this article and see what Chris Hedges says here on Substack. The Trump administration's refusal to release the Epstein files and videos is done not only to protect Trump, but the ruling class. They all belong to the same club. Yeah, and we ain't in it, right? This picture here is American Satricon by Mr. Fish. The refusal by the Trump administration to release the files and videos amassed during investigations into the activities of the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein should put to rest the absurd idea embraced by Trump supporters and gullible liberals that Trump will dismantle the deep state. Trump is part of, and it has long been part of, the repugnant cabal of politicians, Democrat and Republican, billionaires and celebrities who look at us, and often underage girls and boys, as commodities to exploit for profit or pleasure. The list of those who were in Epstein's orbit is a who's who of the rich and famous. They include not only Trump, but Bill Clinton, who allegedly took a trip to Thailand with Epstein, Prince Andrew, Bill Gates, hedge fund billionaire Glenn Dubin, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, former Secretary of the Treasury and former president of Harvard University Larry Summers, cognitive psychologist and author Steven Pinker, Alan Dershowitz, who's a well-known attorney, billionaire and Victoria's Secret CEO Leslie Wexner, the former Barclays banker Jess Staley, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, the magician David Copperfield, who I just saw when we were in Vegas back at the beginning of the year. So magician David Copperfield, actor Kevin Spacey, former CIA Director Bill Burns, real estate mogul Mort Zuckerman, former Maine Senator George Mitchell, and disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein, who reveled in Epstein's perpetual bacchanalia, which is like a Roman drinking fest, like beer fest kind of thing. They also include law firms and high-priced attorneys, federal and state prosecutors, private investigators, personal assistants, publicists, servants, and drivers. They include the numerous procurers and pimps, including Epstein's girlfriend and daughter of Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, who I would add personally, after looking into this a little more, this is just a little sidebar here. Robert Maxwell was a well-known Israeli spy. He worked for Mossad. Ghislaine Maxwell was his daughter. I personally think that Jeffrey Epstein may have been working for Ghislaine Maxwell. She may have been the real kingpin here, but there's no way to know. They include the media and politicians who ruthlessly discredited and silenced the victims and strong-armed anyone, including a handful of intrepid reporters, seeking to expose Epstein's crimes and circle of accomplices. There's a lot that remains hidden, but there are some things that we know. Epstein installed hidden cameras in his opulent residences on his private Caribbean island, Little St. James, to capture his high-powered friends engaging in sexual romps and abuse of teenage and underage girls and boys. The recordings were blackmail gold. Were they part of an intelligence operation on behalf of the Israeli Mossad? Or were they used to ensure that Epstein had a steady source of investors who funneled him millions of dollars to avoid being outed? I think probably it was both, don't you? Yeah, or were they used for both? He shuttled underage girls between New York and Palm Beach on his private jet, the Lolita Express, which was allegedly outfitted with a bed for group sex. His coterie of famous friends, including Clinton and Trump, are recorded as traveling on the jet numerous times on released flight logs, although many other flight logs have disappeared. I would say conveniently so. Epstein's videos are in the vaults of the FBI, along with detailed evidence that would rip back the veil on the sexual proclivities and callousness of the powerful. I doubt there is a client list, as Attorney General Pam Bondi claims. There is also no single Epstein file. The investigative material amassed in Epstein fills many, many boxes, which would bury Bondi's desk and probably, if collected in one room, dominate most of the space in her office. Yeah, I've heard that it was entire buildings full of stuff, pretty much, as far as the videotapes and all of the, recordings part of it. Did Epstein commit suicide, as the official autopsy report claims, by hanging himself in his jail cell on August 10th, 2019 at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, or was he murdered? Well, we just looked at that post from that was on 8chan, right? And it's sounding to me like he was swapped out. But anyway, since the cameras recording activity in his cell that night were not functional, we do not know. Michael Baden, a forensic pathologist hired by Epstein's brother, who served as chief medical examiner for New York City and was also present at the autopsy, says he believes Epstein's autopsy suggests homicide. So yes, the person that was killed was murdered. The way his neck was broken and stuff couldn't have been from the hanging. The particular way that the bones in his neck were broken had to have been from strangulation. That has all come out. The Epstein case is important because it implodes the fiction of deep divisions between Democrats who had no more interest in releasing the Epstein files than Trump and the Republicans. They belong to the same club. It exposes how the courts and law enforcement agencies collude to shield powerful figures who engage in crimes. It lays bare the depravity of our exhibitionist ruling class, accountable to no one, free to violate, plunder, loot, and prey on the weak and the vulnerable. It is the tawdry record of our oligarchic masters who lack the capacity for shame or guilt, whether dressed up as Donald Trump or Joe Biden. This class of ruling parasites was parodied in the first century satirical novel Satyricon by Gaius Arbiter, when was written during the reigns of Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. As in Satyricon, Epstein's circle was dominated by pseudo-intellectuals, pretentious buffoons, grifters, con artists, petty criminals, the insatiable rich, and the sexually depraved. Epstein and his inner circle routinely engaged in sexual perversions of Petronian proportions, as the Miami Herald investigative reporter Julie Brown, whose dogged reporting was largely responsible for reopening the federal investigation into Epstein and Maxwell, documents in her book called The Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein Story. As Brown writes, in 2016, an anonymous woman using the pseudonym Kate Johnson, remember that name? Kate Johnson, pseudonym, filed a civil complaint in a federal court in California alleging that she was raped by Trump and Epstein when she was 13 over a 4-month period from June to September 1994. I loudly pleaded with Trump to stop, she said, in the lawsuit about being raped. Trump responded to my pleas by violently striking me in the face with his open hand and screaming that he could do whatever he wanted. Brown continues, Johnson said, again, this girl, who was 13 at the time, said that Epstein invited her to a series of underage sex parties at his New York mansion, where she met Trump. Enticed by promises of money and modeling opportunities, Johnson said she was forced to have sex with Trump several times, including once with another girl, 12 years old, whom she labeled Marie Doe. Marie Doe. Trump demanded oral, you know what, the lawsuit said, and afterwards he pushed both minors away while angrily berating them for the poor quality of the performance, according to the lawsuit. Filed April 26th in California. Afterward, when Epstein learned that Trump had taken Johnson's virginity, Epstein allegedly attempted to strike her about the head with his closed fists, angry he had not been the one to take her virginity. Johnson claimed that both men threatened to harm her and her family if she ever revealed what had happened. So again, this is a lot of details. You think it could have just been made up? Because it sounds pretty legit here. The lawsuit states that Trump did not take part in Epstein's orgies, but liked to watch. And often, while the 13-year-old Kate Johnson gave him a hand, you know what? It appears Trump was able to quash the lawsuit by buying her silence. She has since disappeared. So Kate Johnson has disappeared. In 2008, Alex Acosta, who at the time was the U.S. Attorney and Southern District of Florida, for the Southern District of Florida, negotiated a plea deal for Epstein. The deal granted immunity from all federal criminal charges to Epstein, 4 named co-conspirators, and any unnamed potential co-conspirators. The agreement shut down the FBI probe into whether there were more victims and other powerful figures who took part in Epstein's sex crimes. It halted the investigation and sealed the indictment. Trump, in what many consider an act of gratitude, appointed Acosta as Secretary of Labor in his first term. Trump contemplated pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell after she was arrested in July of 2020, fearing she would reveal details of his decades-long friendship with Epstein. Decades long, according to Trump biographer Michael Wolff. In July 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Epstein's closest relationship in life was with Donald Trump. These were two guys joined at the hip for a good 15 years. They did everything together. Wolff told host Joanna Coles on the Daily Beast podcast. Well, the Daily Beast is a liberal rag, but still. And this is from sharing, pursuing women, hunting women, sharing at least one girlfriend for at least a year in this kind of rich guy relationship with each other's planes. So Epstein advising Trump on how to cheat on his taxes. The illegal anomalies, including the disappearance of massive amounts of evidence incriminating Epstein, saw Epstein avoid federal sex trafficking charges in 2007 when his attorneys negotiated a secret plea deal with Acosta. He was able to plead guilty to lesser state charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution. And then it goes on to talk about how Alan Dershowitz is connected and all that, which we won't get into that. Mostly I wanted to mention about all of these details between Epstein and Trump and stuff that nobody really knew about. And, you know, going back to what Elon Musk said in his tweet, his angry tweet when he was mad at Trump a few weeks ago, he since deleted the tweet, but he said that the reason that Trump didn't want that information to come out was because he was on the list. Maybe he knew what he was talking about. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. The Epstein story is a window into the moral bankruptcy, hedonism, and greed of the ruling class. This crosses political lines. It's the common denominator between Democrat politicians such as Bill Clinton, philanthropists such as Bill Gates and the billionaire class, and Trump. They are one class of predators and grifters. It is not only girls and women they exploit, but all of us. So anyway, there's more to this. I didn't read the entire thing, but we read and covered most of that. But that is on this Substack post. I do think that he's got a lot of details here that he couldn't just be making up out of whole cloth, personally. And if you doubt me on the pictures, you can kind of see here. Now, these are just a few still shots of him and Epstein together. Obviously, these top ones where he's got a pink tie on, that's all from the same meeting here. But here are other pictures of Trump with either Maxwell or with Epstein. So there's several here, and then in the middle of the picture collage it says, "Stop talking about Epstein." Well, maybe we now know why he wants us to stop talking about Epstein. And of course, we've all heard the rumors about Melania being hooked up with Trump through Jeffrey Epstein, which was mentioned again in the Reese report at the beginning of the show tonight. So, interesting collage, huh? Well, here is the Virginia Giuffre piece that I wanted to play for you guys. It's not very long, but this is the dead man switch that I came across earlier today, and I think it will help clear a few things up. And note that the idea here that Epstein did not die is mentioned in this dead man switch here from Virginia.
If you're watching this, it means they got me. My dead man switch activated automatically after I missed 2 scheduled check-ins. I had it set up months ago because I knew this day was coming. I did not die by accident. I was murdered to keep their secrets buried. My name is Virginia Louise Giuffre. I was one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. I survived Little St. James, but survival came at a price. I saw too much, knew too much, and now they've silenced me. But it's too late for them. They thought killing me would bury their secrets, but this video is going to a few organizations I trust, ones that have been exposing the truth for decades. You know who you are. It's your job to continue this fight. I was 16 when they reeled me in. I worked at Mar-a-Lago, folding towels, cleaning lockers. My father kept the tennis courts immaculate. We were just working folks trying to scrape by. Trump, he was around, but he was never the threat. The real predator was Ghislaine Maxwell, prim and proper, smiling, promising to teach me massage therapy at the Pink Mansion in Palm Beach. I had no idea I was being fed into a nightmare machine. Epstein's Island was hell disguised as paradise. You've heard some names linked to him, but those are just the sacrificial pawns. The real players, the ones they've protected at all costs, are still hiding in plain sight. I'll name two now. The first, a former U.S. president, Barack Obama. Publicly, he's revered. Privately, he was one of the worst. He wasn't there for the girls. He was there for the island boys. Young boys, trafficked and groomed. I saw him more times than I can count, always without his Secret Service detail, sometimes with his Hollywood friends, George Clooney and Tom Hanks. I still have nightmares about them, arrogant and drunk on power, slinking into the cabanas with kids barely out of childhood. The second, Bill Gates, the billionaire philanthropist, loved by the media, hailed as a savior. We called him the benefactor, and we used to dread seeing him naked. But he didn't come to party. He came to experiment. Genetic experiments, human experiments. I saw him inject a young girl with something they said was a genetic enhancement. She was younger than me, strapped to a table, terrified, treated like a lab rat while they muttered about seeding the future of the species. These men think they are gods, playing with life like it was theirs to own. I'm telling you now, Epstein isn't dead. They staged his death because he was too valuable. He held blackmail on some of the most powerful people on earth. Files, videos, confessions. They couldn't risk him talking, but they also couldn't risk him gone, so they hid him. Stashed him under the protection of the same elite who once paid him to supply them with flesh. And they thought killing me would stop this from coming out. They were wrong, and there is so much more to come. Hidden servers, encrypted drives, witness testimonies. It's all going to hit the light. This video is just the first detonation. The data drops are timed and automatic. They are going to people who can make a difference, and nobody can stop it now. Not even the law enforcement agencies in the US and UK, the same ones that buried the evidence I handed them, can stop this truth from getting out. If you're watching this, you are the resistance. Don't let my death be just another headline. Burn their lies to the ground. Make the world see the monsters behind the masks. And to any survivors out there, don't give up. We're in this together. They can't kill us all. Make them pay.
There you have it. There you have it from Miss Giuffre's own mouth. And I think that's absolutely mind-blowing. Miss Susan here says, my goosebumps have goosebumps right now. Yeah, so this is going to be coming out even more so. So this is the first that I've personally come across as far as the dead man switch from Virginia. And sounds like there'll be others. I just thought it was really interesting. I just put in, I don't know, a few hours worth of work before the show tonight finding all this stuff. And if I can find it, anybody can find it. It is there. So it's just a matter of connecting the dots. Personally, I was hoping that Trump was not involved in all of the Epstein stuff. It turns out that not only was he involved, he was a main actor in the whole series of things that happened, it looks like. And that is why he's hiding it. That's why it's being covered up. So I think that this may very well bring down his administration. It's a very good chance of that happening. And people are not going to buy this. They're not going to believe the gaslighting, and it's not going to go away. It's only going to get bigger. So it's up to us to make sure it gets bigger, because people like this do not need to be in charge. Yes, he's done some good things. I will give him credit. He's closed the border. That was the number one reason that I personally voted for the guy. To close the border, he has done that. And now it's a matter of, at some point, facing God for what you do. And I think that that will be soon, Who knows if he lives through his entire term. Hopefully he will, and face consequences for his actions. But it appears to me that he was actively involved in a lot of this Epstein stuff. So that is bad news, but it's good that the truth comes out. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I think I've got a few other tabs here pulled up on this whole thing tonight, so we'll be coming back to that. But I just thought it was pretty incredible, and her information there about Epstein and everything that she talked about, I thought was really good information, and it all makes a lot of sense when you hear it from her perspective. Now, Alex seems to think, and I had up till today, believed him that Trump probably wasn't really involved in all of the Epstein stuff. And because Alex does do his research, I think Alex is wrong on this. I do think that the Substack that I read quite a bit of a little while ago really helped detail things and would help explain, in my opinion at least, why Trump would want this whole thing covered up. And you could even take it to the extreme, perhaps, being how Epstein supposedly, quote, died during his first administration, maybe Trump had something to do with Epstein's disappearance. Now, I personally don't think Epstein is dead. I have thought that for some time, but I hadn't really seen it until Virginia Giuffre's testimony in her Dead Man Switch, and then also the 8chan thing that I read earlier. I didn't know about those two things before this afternoon when I was looking into all of this stuff. So I think personally that it helps explain that, yes, indeed, Epstein is still alive. He's being kept somewhere. He's too valuable to them for them to have let him be killed or hang himself, quote unquote. And this guy that you're seeing on your screen here, I did not realize was part of this whole thing. But he liked the little cabana guys. He liked the cabana boys. Barack Insane Obama. So it turns out he is also active in this whole cover-up because he doesn't want that information to get out. I bet Trump knows exactly where Epstein is. Emily says, yeah, I think you're right. I think he does too. How the elites felt after the FBI concluded that there was no Epstein list. Just watch Bush's face. Directed by Michael Bay, who also, by the way, is on that list. The FBI can tell you the name of every January 6th conspirator, but not a single name from Epstein's client list. Yeah. And last but not least, Bart Simpson here says Epstein's client's government, obviously he's blind, and a $600 Venmo transaction, they can see every detail of that. That sums it up, doesn't it?